press was conceived, I remember the day. It was in my studio at 70 Merrill Street, which is on Munjoy Hill. And we gathered in my studio and began talking about creating a press. And I think we knew something about presses in other cities, like the presses in Boston, the cooperative presses. None of us had done a lot of printmaking.
Probably in the early 70s, I decided that working at home and having a studio at home was not working out for me, because I was always joined by my children. And that worked and it didn't work. So I got a studio at the bottom of Exchange Street, and I think I probably moved around studios many times. I was thinking at the time, all right, you know, there was a small art community when I was first there, and it was getting bigger, and I thought, wouldn't it be so interesting to be able to buy a building that could house a lot of different artists together and different disciplines together, and there could be some kind of collaboration.
It was a very, very difficult decision for us because we were very small. We weren't spending a lot of money on half of a studio space at Merrill Street. And we really had to take a great leap of faith and just imagine that we were going to be a big, vigorous press with more members, with more equipment, with more ability to do a lot of different kinds of things in printmaking than we'd been able to at Merrill Street. So we all had to take a very deep breath and jump. I remember thinking, well, our press has to have a name. And I was on the top floor. It's a flat-roofed building, and there always were pigeons up there, you know, chortling and murmuring and walking around in their little feet. And so somebody thought, oh, pigeon press, that sounds good. And then we thought, not such a wonderful bird. Maybe we need something a little higher class. And at that point, we settled on Peregrine Press.
In truth, I think that we were just keeping our fingers crossed because this space was so totally set up for printmaking. There were vents and acid room, rosin boxes, and dark rooms. So we thought, well, there wasn't really any other act in town. And so maybe there would have been a group of printmakers from the college that would have come down. But I would have hated to reconfigure that space and make it into just regular studio spaces, because it's such a good printmaking space. You know, there's so much that printmaking requires: sinks and sort of dedicated smaller rooms, and that it was fabulous that they went in there.
When Peregrine moved in, I don't know, for a lot of reasons, there wasn't that much interest in joining the press. I think there wasn't as much activity. We didn't have a lot of shows and portfolios and things like the members are doing now. So we just seemed to be dwindling, and we weren't making enough money to cover our bills. This was around the time that I became president. It was in the late 1990s. And I thought that the things that would attract me to the press were having opportunities to show with a community of artists that I admired, having workshops so that I could learn new things, and starting to think about some of the new movements in printmaking that would train me to be more skilled. So when I came in as president, that was my goal. It was to try and bring these things to Peregrine. So those were all big shifts, and they helped to energize the press, and all of a sudden we had a waiting list, and we had people coming in and joining the press and staying for a long time. So there was a lot of continuity in the membership, which makes a much stronger organization. So it was exciting. We also decided it was time to think more about non-toxic printmaking, because so many illnesses that happen to printmakers have come about because of the chemicals that we work with. The acids in the acid room, the solvents that we use to clean, and some of the other processes.
So when I joined the press, already no solvents were allowed in the press, and definitely it was a much less toxic environment, I think, than it had been previously in the early days. And for people in the press, I think it was super important. And I think there are people who wouldn't have stayed in the press if there had been a lot of solvents and things still being used in the studio. I think one of the fantastic things about Peregrine is how all the members really inspire each other and also come up with interesting projects that can be worked on. And I think that's one of the really great things that being as part of this cooperative, you have all this back and forth between the members and finding out about projects or getting people involved in different projects, or also the teaching component where members teach each other things or help each other with different processes. If someone is getting stuck somewhere on a print or a process that they can't seem to get it worked out, they know they can go to anyone else in the press and they get tons of help and advice and collaboration with, and it's one of the great things about the press. Around 2008, I became co-president, and then shortly after that, Alice Spencer did her trip to Zanzibar to work with these women who were doing fantastic paintings. She was teaching them printmaking methods, and she came back from that trip and came to me and said, do you think we can do a collaboration with these women? Do you think people in the press would be interested? I said, sounds like a fantastic idea to me. So we proposed it to the press membership, and that became the Dunya Moha One World collaboration between Peregrine Press and these women artists of Zanzibar. That culminated in an exhibition in 2011 at the Lewis Gallery at the Portland Public Library and was just a massive success. It was a tremendous project. I think everyone in the press was super energized by doing that project.
Printmaking is indeed a collaborative effort. In a larger sense, speaks to how generous artists are and how collaborative artists of almost every medium in Maine happens to be. This becomes particularly important in the nature of printmaking because it is in and of itself a collaborative matter. Most of our several presses exist as cooperatives in which artists learn from each other. They get excited about what the individual artists are doing. They support one another. They exhibit together, and it's one of the key points that people like being printmakers, because friendships evolve. Acquiring new techniques, knowledge, expertise, all happens because one is helping the other.
One of my thoughts about this, about why the press is so successful, is because it's a very cohesive social group. And I think that the people in the press feel very connected with each other and very centered around doing work together, learning from each other, getting to know each other. The other thing that I think is a possibility is that printmakers have quite a lot of left brain function because it's a very analytical process, and you have to plan. And for that reason, printmakers are good at putting together shows and projects and the kinds of things you need executive skills to carry out. And those two factors are one of the things I think might create that wonderful energy that comes from the place.
Now, I think also the truth is it's a very obsessive, compulsive practice, and there's a lot of failure involved with it, or there can be. Maybe sometimes there isn't if you're really on top of it. But I think there's always what's going to happen next factor that keeps people really involved with it. And if I do this, what will happen? And that just is a very ongoing part of the process. And I think it's fascinating in that way because it's a lengthy process. And the other thing I love about printmaking is that there's that kind of drone activity. You know, you're wiping your plates and you get a chance to,
Rituals.
you can just sort of not be thinking every minute. You do have those periods of intense labor and then sort of just process.
Peregrine Press is essentially important to the art of printmaking in Maine because of its longevity, its stability, its importance of a number of its membership, several of whom teach in colleges locally, those who exhibit widely in Maine and far beyond. It simply is a vibrant institution full of very, very committed printmakers, most of whom don't limit themselves simply to making prints, but are involved in as painters, as sculptors, and people working in other mediums as well. But printmaking is a vital, vital part of their artistic lives.
The other thing that is true at this press, and I think in any press, is that there's always something new to learn.
Yeah.
I don't know how many different printmakers have come and given workshops here, but there's
Great, yeah.
always something, a new technique, something, it's almost revelatory, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
So that it's a area of art making that is always evolving.
I think also Peregrine just it's a document. It's a history of art that's been done by printmakers in Maine for 25 years, and I think it will continue to develop that aspect of sort of chronicling what artists are interested in, what this community produces, and how they move out beyond this community.
I look at the press and I hear what's going on there, and I am so full of awe. It's just, it's remarkable how far it's come in the last 25 years, and how interesting and varied and rich the work is, how interesting and varied the projects that go on. It's an extraordinary group of people, and all of whom seem to be fully committed and fully engaged in making the press be a wonderful presence in our city and really across the state.
Hi, I'm Jeff Woodbury, co-president of Peregrine Press.
And I'm Kate Cheney-Chappell, co-president of Peregrine Press with Jeff. And we want to thank you for joining us on this look back and into the heart of Peregrine Press as we celebrate 25 years.
Peregrine Press is the only nonprofit press in Maine and one of the oldest printmaking cooperatives in New England. We have 30 members, men and women of all ages, using techniques from screen printing, which I do, to collograph, which Kate does, among possibly a dozen other methods within our membership. Our strength lies in our shared commitment to printmaking as an innovative and evolving art form.
Yes, the diversity of techniques and the way we share them with each other is really unique. This is what someone has called a community of practice. There's a real synergy here that enables us to do more together than any of us could accomplish alone.
We produced 3 different portfolios of limited edition prints that have been collected by major museums, universities, and colleges in Maine and beyond.
For our anniversary exhibit in 2016, we collaborated on a giant peregrine falcon kite. Each of us made prints using an agreed upon palette of colors, and then we all got together to collage them onto a 13-foot wide paper and wood kite frame. It's both a symbol of our collective and a product of our collective imagination.
We've mounted many shows together and engaged the public in printmaking through the Kate Mahoney lectures and interactive demonstrations like the Makers Fair.
We are an all-volunteer group. We have survived and thrived for 25 years because of the strong commitment of our members. We believe in the power of printmaking. As a medium, it brings people together to work, learn, and practice the art of the hand-pulled print. We mark our 25th anniversary of Peregrine Press in 2016 with a major exhibit at the Lewis Gallery of the Portland Public Library.
On behalf of all current and former Peregrine Press members, thanks for watching.